Hey guys, what is up? Kid here, bringing you another video for Grand Archive. This time I'm going to talk about the Rile package and how it's affected the meta, and how, in my opinion, I think it's kind of disrupt how the meta could be playing out and be a little bit more open. I think it created this fake diversity that's going on right now because obviously the huge goal with the community in general, I think a lot of people were like, hey, let's kind of get up to level 3. We want to play level 3 decks, but all the best decks right now are kind of like stuck at level 1 for the most part, especially in the like past meta for HVN. Almost the best deck in the format was the level 1 deck. So the fact that they're trying to create some stuff to get us into level 3 and make it a little bit better payoff is very nice. I think the direction they kind of went with the idea of the Rile package, maybe, at least I assume this is kind of why this whole package was generated, essentially, is a decent payoff for like people like trying to turbo to 3 so they, one, don't lose a lot of advantage, because to get to level 3 you're basically giving up essentially 6 cards worth of advantage to be able to get to 3 to unlock the advanced element. My biggest gripe with level 3s at this point is that I don't think they design advanced element cards very well, and a lot of cards that I think should be tied to some type of advanced element in the game currently are actually in the basic elements, which is kind of annoying because there's very, very powerful basic element cards, and then you get to some of these advanced element cards where every card should read like very, very powerful for as a utility card or as a way to finish games or like pressure to your opponent. I think advanced element cards really need a boost in general of how good they are, just to be able to have that good payoff. There is some now payoff essentially because of the Rile Abyss package in general, or the Specter package, I guess I should call it, to get up to higher levels now, which is very nice. I think they did a good job in that. But this card in itself is a really huge issue. So to kind of dig into that a little deeper, I guess we'll just show you the whole package if you're not familiar with it at this point. If you're playing Fire, this is basically the best card to be playing in Fire, essentially, at this best package. So first is Rile the Abyss, which a lot of the times this card usually becomes, at best, becomes a +3 essentially on your card advantage, essentially, because a lot of the times you're discarding Floating Memory, you're discarding Liminal Guide, and Liminal Guide also generates another card, and then Rile the Abyss doesn't make your hand go down 1 card to facilitate everything. It actually goes even, so you essentially don't waste any cards and then just naturally go up cards while being able to filter through your deck a little bit quicker and see more cards, which is insane. So this is basically the card that like generates everything and makes everything go. Then the next cards that are usually found in the package is Undying Dreams. This card is obnoxiously insanely good, not only because of its effect. Its actual effect probably isn't that powerful in general, unless you're playing for the whole ephemeral Specter stuff, or at least that's probably what they intended in some way. And if you're not playing that stuff, it's still kind of like a +1/+1 to be able to push some damage, or like a combat trick to have an ally live longer. But the problem with this card is the fact it has Floating Memory, and it's not locked to anything in specific, which is interesting. So that means this is a generic float that every deck that's playing Rile the Abyss can play. So this card now reads Floating Memory. When you discard this card, draw a card. It's obnoxious in that sense, just because of the access to Floating Memory. On top of that, you have a second generic float here, a Floating Memory. So decks that really care about getting Floating Memory in the graveyard, it's obnoxious that you get 8 cards in your deck for the Rile the Abyss itself that also generate advantages by being in the graveyard. That's why we see so much graveyard hate. Maybe some people might say it's Liminal Guide's fault, but at the end of the day, it's just the speed at which you're able to discard these Floating Memories and then still not lose cards in your hand is pretty obnoxious, because all of these cards basically say discard this card, draw a card, and then gain a Floating Memory. So you get to filter through your deck way quicker. In this game, if you've been playing it for a while now, you understand that there's actually not a lot of searching this game. It's just a lot of ripping off the top and also glimpsing to maybe fix those draws or find specific cards you would like. But there's very, very few cards that you can search your deck itself to find the exact card when you need it. Very few very few classes and jobs or whatever have that ability. So because of all the access to this float, it makes the Rile package that much stronger. I think they wanted some, like, I hope this was their design idea at the time. I'm really not sure how this kind of made it past like testing, essentially, at how powerful it is. Then the final card, which I think some people hate a lot too, is Liminal Guide. It's a really, really powerful effect, but that gets exponentially more powerful due to Rile the Abyss, making it so not only is this card creating high roll scenarios that are obnoxious, where your opponent immediately goes +3, has a body on the board, and got to level up in one turn. That's insane value right there. It's just obnoxiously how good this card is. So now you're kind of forced into the whole Rile the Abyss package, because all three of these cards basically all are generically very powerful once they get discarded, and then they all let you essentially go up a card by being discarded. But Liminal Guide lets you essentially go up 2 advantage wise, because not only do you get a draw card, you get a body on the board that's 1/3, which is relatively tough to actually out easily, just due to how stat lines work in this game for allies. I don't know if there's ever going to be a rebalance of how stats work in this game, but anything at beyond 2 health starts to become pretty rough to remove off the board. And yes, it's only 1 attack, but the fact that it is also ephemeral with the last card, the Dreams card, makes this card potentially into a 2/4, which is even obnoxiously harder to remove off the board as well, on top of the card got you to draw a card. So that's generally the package itself. I think the whole idea behind the package was pretty... I mean, if you look at right now, we have a lot of actual level 3 decks within this meta, which is really cool to see. But I do think Rile the Abyss itself has like kind of tainted this meta and made certain elements almost unplayable. Wind is like holding on pretty well, which is interesting to see. They do have a lot of access to like Graveyard Hate and things like that, which, you know, it kind of makes sense that they now get to bully these other Rile decks, these other fire decks a little bit by removing the advantage that they normally are going to get and turning those decks back into slower, normal level 3 decks. I think this is why certain decks at this point, at least at this point in the meta, you don't see too many other level 3 decks that can't survive without having the Rile the Abyss. That's why we still see Lorraine running around, Merlin. Those are all very powerful level 3 decks. Seal, even a very powerful level 3 deck that can play through not drawing Rile and the Specter package and things like that, or if they get punished that way, they can still naturally get to their point of the game and then still play the game out. Yes, they'll be a little bit behind, but if both players are not playing the Specter package because one person has hated them out of the game becomes even again, and suddenly these level 3 decks are still very, very powerful. This is why we still also see like Tristan is a really powerful like anti-meta, not meta card, but meta deck kind of running around right now. They have enough room to like fight back against a lot of these Rile decks while also still playing onto their own game plan to end the game. They have very good utility between ending the game early with Slice and Dice and getting into late game with the guaranteed Shadow Strike or whatever it's called. But yeah, let me get back on topic here with Rile the Abyss and why I think this card is a really big issue. So this card itself does something that I think should be very limited in this game. This is the type of effect I would expect to see on a like advanced element type of card, because drawing multiple cards, even though you're not technically, even if, let's just say for example, we only discarded cards that don't generally advance us in advantage at all, and we're just playing some generic Specter stuff, right? We just discard those. This card still lets us see 3 cards, which is pretty obnoxious in a game where there's not a lot of searching in our deck or anything like that, or tutors essentially. The fact that this card lets you dig through your deck quicker than most other cards currently is kind of obnoxious. On top of that, because you get to see more cards, I don't know why this one was not either cost more to be played. Like this being at a 4 cost probably is still highly played, but it's going to not be as good as it was before. You're definitely not going to see like these Serene packages where we're glimpsing 6 to find like the Rile Abyss, Liminal Guide, and a Floating Memory to discard off the top. that it stops those turn one plays like that. You are forced into the normal element, the base element, where you draw 7 instead if you want to like hopefully hit that high roll. And at this point, even too, we're actually seeing some of those decks opting to just play the draw 7 over the 6, because people are starting to realize a lot more that yes, getting some of that advantage immediately feels really, really good, but getting that extra card is just as powerful as finding the perfect opening hand where you have a higher chance to open up the high roll for Rile the Abyss. Another problem with this card is not only the fact that it can see so many cards, it's that it's fast speed. So it lets you somewhat, or force you and your opponent to play into this weird awkward scenario where like this card is so powerful that I can wait until the end of your turn, decide whether I need to respond to anything. If there's nothing I need to respond to that would upset my game state, at the end of your turn I can Rile the Abyss, or even at Recollection phase Rile the Abyss to do whatever I want to do and cycle through more cards very, very quickly. So the fact that this card is also fast speed is kind of obnoxious. I think if you're going to have a card like this that's going to see so many cards so quickly while also giving you so much advantage, there has to be some downside to this. The downside obviously isn't playing the Specter package stuff. Like the worst card you could be playing is Evercurrent Raider, just because if you're obviously in fire, this can't be played from your hand. It's basically a dead card in your hand, so it's only good to ever discard, but it's still a floating memory, so it still has really, really good value. And then if you're playing a Crux level 3, with that, I forget the name of the sword, the Crux sword, but that deck also wants to be able to see like water cards and wind cards in memory. So this not only is a card that helps that deck out as well, it found extra utility that way, which made this card slightly better, but it's still like the worst, I feel like, of the 3 cards in the package itself for discarding. But even that being said, like there has to be some kind of risk you have to take as a player to be playing this card. So if this card was at slow speed, for example, I think it'd be infinitely more fair, because you have to put your cards on the table and let your opponent know, I have Rile the Abyss, I'm playing it, I'm discarding these cards, do you have an answer? Instead, you're forced into this scenario where the only real things that can combat Rile the Abyss are also fast speed things. If this was slow speed, things like Raccoon would be really good in the main board against Rile Abyss decks, because if they decide to go or be greedy, now these like ally cards that don't have fast activation can now come in, eat up their graveyard a little bit, and then like still gain value that way. It's interesting to see that, you know, the trash raccoon or whatever it's called, scavenger raccoon, I think that's what it's called, is basically seeing no play, because if you think about it a lot more, a lot of the way you discard in fire is at fast speed essentially. So the fact that this card is fast speed is another power bump to this card. It's so interesting. Like I'm very curious how the design team ended up on necessarily all these traits, because I feel like this is the perfect amount of like slightly overtuned on every aspect of this card to really make it as broken as it has been. It's fast speed when it probably shouldn't be fast speed, because you should open up yourself to some kind of counterplay, or more counterplay, I should say, by making this a slow speed. I think this is slow speed. You still see this played a lot, but definitely it wouldn't be as powerful as it currently is. And it would open up the counterplay for this card to a little bit more things out there, which would be nice. And, you know, like I said, being the Rile the Abyss player, you have to show all your cards to your opponent, like put them out on the table, essentially. Be like, I have to do this main phase because it's the only way I can do it. The next part about this card, it discards 2 cards. I don't know why. And the stuff that you can be discarding in the package itself, every card wants to be in the graveyard. Period. Every card gets way more powerful in the graveyard. Period. That's really obnoxious, because what's really nice about cards like this, and at least card design, I would say, is because there's no searching in this game, and I assume, like, I've only been playing this game for like less than a year, and I assume fire as an element is all about speed, burning as bright as possible, as fast as possible, and then like teetering out. It doesn't have a lot of ways to generate advantage over and over again as the game goes on, and it's usually the element I feel like that either has to have something in the level 3 advanced elements or something else going on with the deck to generate you some type of advantage to win the game, or you just burn as bright as you can in the first like 4 turns of the game, and then you peter out till you lose the game because your opponent just had better mid to late game payoffs than you did, and you never got any more advantage up. So the fact this lets you see 3 cards is obnoxious without going down a card in your hand, while also generating you advantage in the graveyard and so forth. It's the fact that this costs 3, meaning that you're allowed to play it in these Glimpse 6 Spirits decks, is also kind of obnoxious in a way too. It was just the perfect storm of power, of like incremental. Like if there was a tweak here, if they made it slow, it'd probably be infinitely more fair with the current package that's out there. If they made it cost 4, it would be probably a little bit better. Or not better, I'm sorry, a little bit more fair. Maybe not. Maybe actually making everyone play Draw 7 would make this card even better, accidentally in a way, but it would definitely limit the amount of high rolls that happen. Another thing about this too is they recently banned Lost in Thought, which I thought was one of the best payoffs for playing Water. Because like a lot of Water, you trade 1 for 1 and slowly build advantage over time. And I feel like most Water decks are either trying to lock you out of the game or eventually get to the late game to the point where our influence is just so much influence that you can't fight us through all that influence as a Water player. But Rile the Abyss essentially does that for Fire now. And they banned Lost in Thought, which I think in comparison to this card, I almost think Lost in Thought is almost more fair than Rile the Abyss, but not really, in a really weird way. Yeah, it's just interesting to see how this card this whole package has evolved in this meta. I mean, even to the point where some aggro decks are like very, like even playing like Fire aggro decks are playing the Abyss package because it's so good. As long as you just like hit a little bit on this, you get extra fuel for being aggressive. You get a free body on the board if you hit Liminal Guide, which is insane. I've had a few games where my opponent, like their turn 1, end of my turn is Rile the Abyss, discard 2 Liminal Guides, draw 2 more cards, and I'm just like, please end me right now. And then they go into their level up, they immediately get 2 bodies on the board, they get to draw 2 cards, all for losing 1 card. So they get to go up, essentially they gain 4 by losing 1. It just seems too good. Like I understand there are situations with Lost in Thought that facilitate really obnoxious high rolls early game. So if you do some early discards or some early mills, as with the Water player, you mill like 2 to 3 float, you just Lost in Thought for 3 at the end of your opponent's turn, and a lot of times you've won the game just through the advantage you got early on, which I think is an issue with cards like this, Rile the Abyss, and even Lost in Thought, for example, where they need more restrictions. Anything that lets you potentially go up a lot in advantage in this game needs more restrictions to be restricted to the higher level stuff. Anytime you don't put any restrictions onto these cards, suddenly the aggro decks and stuff can find ways to abuse it. And the fact that you're seeing Rile the Abyss abused in some of these aggro decks is a scary thought moving forward. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on Rile the Abyss in general. Early on, I think in my review, when we're still seeing stuff, Liminal Guide was a card I called out. I think I even tweeted about this on my Twitter, that Liminal Guide potentially will get banned eventually because it's such a powerful effect that can, if high rolled in a specific way, could just make games like non-games essentially. And we're kind of almost seeing that now through the sheer advantage that Rile the Abyss creates for Liminal Guide. If it's weird because like the Liminal Guide gets some hate just because this Rile the Abyss exists. I think Liminal Guide in a vacuum is a very fair, decently solid card. I do think like the idea of the Rile the Abyss package, if when they were creating this package and testing, honestly, there should have only been like 1 card that gave you floating memory, maybe 2. Like for example, if this floating memory was locked to an element bonus or something like that, that would be fine. Or maybe even if they specifically wanted like this stuff in Lorraine, maybe this was floating memory was locked into Warrior or whatever, or maybe it only got floating memory was active as long as you had some type of Specter on the board. That would be fine too. Undying Dreams is another card here. It's a generic float that isn't locked to anything, and suddenly this card that should not be impacting the meta as much as it should is currently like one of the big reasons to be playing the Rile the Abyss package. The fact that you get 8 floating memory and then 4 extra cards, part of the Specter package, that just generate more advantage for you is obnoxious. Yeah, I don't know. Rile the Abyss was just like the perfect storm of like, this card didn't make it so you go down a card for seeing so many cards. This card was costed in a way that like there is no fear holding this. This card has fast activation, which is I think it's something I hope moving forward that they consider how powerful fast activation is in this game, because there's a lot of scenarios where like the control decks, or if I am forced to hold up things against my opponent, having a secondary option if they didn't do anything I needed to like counter or interact with is really powerful, because you can always do it at the end of their turn or during your recollection phase. So you can get essentially double up on your quote unquote mana for the turn that way, which is pretty obnoxious in itself. And the whole thing, it's just kind of obnoxious in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it for the package. I think we're kind of all at that point where we know that this is a really strong, powerful thing. I think it's making the meta really lopsided. The amount of fire decks that exist is so much higher than it probably should be. Water was taken out back and shot in the head once Lost in Thought was removed. I would have really liked to see a meta with both Rile the Abyss and Lost in Thought in existence. I wonder if that would kind of take some people away from fire too, because we're in this meta as well. We're hitting decks that normally get bullied out of the meta because like any interaction from like a water deck just destroys the deck. Like one of the examples I would point at most recently is there was a NorCal regional that just happened this past weekend, and when I saw what the finals was on stream, which was Water Merlin versus a Fire Jin deck, I immediately said, yeah, this game's over. This matchup is unwinnable for Jin. Like, one of the biggest weaknesses to Jin is water interaction in general. And on top of that, the guy was playing Snow White, which is also a hard counter to Jin as well. So the fact that like water is essentially kind of bullied out of the meta due to the fact that it has no real good, really powerful payoffs. I'm saying this after like a water deck won a really big regional, but water in general doesn't have the best payoffs essentially for their late game payoffs. And now they're kind of like stuck in this scenario where if we're playing a control deck, and this is probably my issue too, like maybe this is totally fine, but I'm definitely lean way heavier towards the control side, where I want to fight people on the stack and not fight people on the board. So I always look towards, as a control player, look for payoffs, kind of like Sphinx's Revelation. If you know that card from Magic, that was a win condition on itself, where it's like you draw X cards and heal X when you cast this spell. And the payoff was like you slow down your opponent so much and you get the advantage that way, where once you resolve your Lost in Thought or Sphinx's Revelation in this case, you get to just draw a bunch of cards, heal back up, and stabilize, and now your opponent can't get through your interactions, and you've locked them out of the game. That's kind of how I like to play games a lot of the time. I know Grand Archive is definitely more suited towards the aggro side of things, because once again, allies have haste and stuff like that, which is kind of obnoxious as someone who's a avid anti-aggro person. Having every creature hit face immediately is kind of scary, but yeah, I don't know. That's just my thoughts on the current meta and everything, kind of how Rile the Abyss is kind of obnoxiously moving the meta around in a way that fake makes it seem like it is a super diverse meta. In reality, we're kind of only seeing the same few decks topping with Rile the Abyss, the same level 3 decks over and over again. A lot of the play patterns of all the decks are exactly the same until you hit level 3, and then at level 3, that's when like you get to play your cool stuff essentially. But unfortunately, only the decks that have a really good advanced element payoff are seeing those level 3s. So Seal has a very good payoff with Blackjack, and that stuff going on right now. Lorraine has really good payoff to finish games at level 3. Crux in general, obviously, with Merlin, very powerful. We get to see Ghosts of Pendragon running around, just drawing you so many cards. Once they get to level 3, they can start building up that advantage and still pressuring you with like a 3-4 horse on the board. Just things like this. We're starting to notice or see this more, where maybe Rile the Abyss would feel much better if like there was more advanced element things out there that really had very powerful payoffs. And at the same time too, this just might be a thing where, as a community, we haven't explored as deeply into everything, and we're all kind of like blindsided by how powerful Rile the Abyss package is, the Specter package is in general, for most decks, that maybe a lot of brewers aren't seeing this thing. Which brings up again, like, for example, the past Boston 5 Vanitas, what they call it, Pony and Taxes, was only able to exist because water didn't exist either. It's a very fragile deck. I think if more people have played the deck since then, they understand that the deck actually is pretty fragile, and the fact that like a deck that just had a sweep and like 8 copies of taunt / intercept just kind of like bullied the deck out of winning Boston. And as the game goes on, you see people tech more for it. It's just one of those decks that's like it was the perfect storm of things happening for that deck to succeed at Boston. And as we move on, it's still going to be very powerful, but it won't be as powerful as it was in Boston. But yeah, I think I rambled on long enough. This is a very long video already. I enjoy discussion videos like this. If you guys want to talk about anything in the comments or want me to talk about something that I'm not aware of or whatever, I love talking with the community and just rambling about my thoughts on a lot of things in this game, because Grand Archive has been an amazingly fun game for me, and like being a competitive player in this game I've had such a huge payoff in less than a year with this game. I'm gonna just continue playing this game for this foreseeable future until they make the game so unbalanced that the game's so unfun and so RNG based. And right now, Rile the Abyss almost feels like some of my games are non-real games because I just opened up the Limo Guide plus Float on turn 1, got to go first, and I just get the advantage immediately and lock my opponent out of the game. But yeah, with that being said, guys, I'll hopefully see you guys in our other videos later. If you haven't checked it out, I did a video about my Genbu deck that I took to my store championships. Check that out if you like Genbu, if you're a Genbu enjoyer like myself. I'm hoping Rile the Abyss gets restricted after the Taipei Ascent, which is this next weekend, because I think that kind of unlocks the ability for Genbu to be more playable again. It's still a very solid deck. It's just some of these high rolls into the fact that aggro is very powerful keeps Genbu down, and some of these level 3 decks are very hard for Genbu to really fight through all consistently. But yeah, with that being said, guys, hopefully see you guys in these other videos, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that. Let me know if you guys have a topic you want me to talk about more. I kind of want to do a podcast, but it seems like everyone's doing a podcast now for Grand Archive. I don't even know who I would get on to be able to like bounce back and forth with on what things to talk about or whatever. But yeah, just that's it, guys. Hopefully see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.